the most anticipated anime of the season, Campfire cooking in another world with my absurd skill. Season 2 has finally dropped. After a period of putting his servant through hell, Phil has gotten chubbier and plumper. He's even starting to look a little pudgy. On a beautiful day in another world, Mukoda was just planning to cook for the crew as usual. But who would have thought that right after taking a bite of a pastry and a sip of his barley smoothie, some little baby dragon would swipe his entire plate of food. Looking closer, that tiny dragon turned out to be the legendary Pixie dragon. Feeling that Mukoda's food was just a high quality, the Pixie dragon took it upon itself to form a contract with him. And just like that, Mukoda's team recruited yet another food vacuum. But just before that, with a single lightning strike, Fel had wiped out all the poison spiders in the forest they were passing through. Mukoda looked on in disgust. You can actually eat this hideous junk. Because the battle ended way too fast, Sui was immediately disappointed she didn't get to play with the big bad wolf. Being a dedicated servant, Mukoda quickly rushed to comfort the little slime with immense patience. This preferential treatment annoyed Fel to no end. The main character was speechless with this godlike creature. It was obvious Fel was the one who was so hard to please, always demanding this and that, and only wanting meat, never veggies. Just look at Sui, the kid's never been a picky eater. Hearing this, Fel's face turned beet red, and he quickly changed the subject, declaring it was time to eat. Hurry up and serve your master the best food, servant. Immediately after, Mukoda quickly stashed all the poison spiders in his item box. After finishing up, he started preparing a ton of ingredients for crispy fried gyoza. First, he used his online supermarket skill to order gyoza wrappers and some special seasonings. Then, he chopped up some cabbage and chives to add to the dish to improve their digestive systems. Next came the marinating stage for the meat filling. All he had to do was knead the prepared ground meat with things like ginger, garlic, wine, salt, and pepper. After the meat was seasoned, he just had to mix in the prepared chives and cabbage, and it was good to go. Seeing Mukoda start to wrap the gyoza, Sui immediately insisted on helping her servant. Fel, watching them from behind, was drooling. Can you hurry it up a bit? I'm starving over here. Although Mukoda was very patient in his teaching, the gyoza that Sui wrapped still weren't exactly pretty. Soon after, with the teamwork of one human and one pet, Mukoda and Sui quickly finished wrapping to heaping plates of gyoza. He placed them in a pan, pan-fried them on medium heat until they were golden brown, then poured in a cornstarch slurry and covered the lid. When the pan started to make a crackling sound, the dish was almost done. He drizzled some sesame oil along the edge of the pan, then placed a plate on top and flipped it over. The fried gyoza with its crispy bottom was ready to be served, before Mukoda could even ask if they needed dipping sauce. Fel unleashed his hungry wolf pounces on prey move and started demolishing everything. In the blink of an eye, a supersized plate of fried gyoza was wiped clean by Fel. After an entire hour of serving the two food vacuums, Mukoda finally got to enjoy the delicious food he made himself. And when you're eating fried gyoza, you obviously can't go without a cold can of beer. But just as he took his first sip, he was suddenly lunged at by some creature. Terrified, Mukoda reflexively lifted it off him. Thanks to Fel's introduction, Mukoda learned this was a pixie dragon, a rare and hard-to-find creature. Seeing it stare intently at his piece of gyoza, Mukoda habitually offered it over. The moment it took its first bite, it was like a whole new world opened up for the pixie dragon. Its adorable appearance made him give it an affectionate smile. After a few bites, it was still craving more, so it flew next to Mukoda and acted cute in an incredibly endearing way. Utterly defeated, he had no choice but to give it the rest of his gyoza. But what Mukoda never expected was that after the little dragon ate until its belly was full, it formed a familiar contract with him faster than lightning. And just like that, the group had another mouth to feed. The main character was devastated. Willing to become someone's pet just for a meal? Are you for real right now? But to his surprise, it casually admitted it. Mukoda's food was the best thing the dragon had ever tasted in its life, which meant sticking with him guaranteed good food every day. Why wouldn't it sign a contract right away to enjoy this good life? Fel agreed with all four paws. After all, a human lifespan is only a few decades. For long-lived races like them, it was just a brief pleasure, but a damn good one at that. Right after, the pixie dragon wanted a name. Thinking it was just a small dragon, Mukoda decided to just call it Dora-chan. This time, it was the pixie dragon's turn to be outraged. He never even asked if I agreed. I'm a full-grown dragon. How can you call me by such a lame name? But the system had already registered the info and it couldn't be changed. It was absolutely furious. What shocked Mukoda, however, was that Dora wasn't just 116 years old. The new member's power was absurdly strong. The only blemish was probably this name. As a Fenrir, Fel also remembered the old days when he was almost named Pochi, a common dog's name. The thought suddenly made him want to rage. Only Sui had no worldly desires, which is why Mukoda doted on her the most. After that, he returned to town to register Dora-chan as his familiar. Coincidentally, the city's guild master had a request for Mukoda. Recently, the monsters in the forest had been acting strangely, preventing them from collecting silk from a certain type of magic insect there. Since this was the main ingredient for the town's specialty fabric, their business couldn't continue if they couldn't get it. Hearing the description of the insect monster, Mukoda felt it sounded familiar, so he directly took out the poison spider they had defeated earlier. Sure enough, The monster the guild master was talking about was this thing. What surprised him even more was that Mukoda had wiped out the source of all the trouble. Realizing the root of the commotion had already been handled by Fel, the guild master joyfully clapped him on the shoulder and told Mukoda that besides the valuable silk and shell, this spider's meat was also a super premium ingredient. Hearing this, the two food vacuums couldn't sit still. They started clamoring to eat it right away. Mukoda feigned refusal until Sui also expressed her desire to eat, at which point he happily agreed to spoil her. So, Mukoda asked the guild master to help butcher it. Very quickly, the spider monster was neatly processed. The guild master was even thoughtful enough to boil it in salt water, keeping the ingredient fresh. After eating, the shell could even be sold for money. The guy was quite excited and took a bite, discovering it tasted very similar to king crab. Maybe even better. The moment these words left his mouth, the food fanatics couldn't stay in their seats, and so, Mukoda decided to throw a crab party. There wasn't just crab fried rice loaded with meat, but also crab meat salad, steamed crab egg custard, and premium spring rolls laid out on the table. This was also a welcoming party for Dora-chan. Fel aimed for the steamed egg custard and took a huge bite. Instantly, savory juices covered its entire mouth. The ultimate combination of fresh and sweet crab flavor made it unable to stop. Sui preferred the more refreshing crab salad. Dora was head over heels for the crispy spring rolls. But when it comes to crab, grilling it whole is the best way to eat it. Mukoda had completely forgotten his fear and was treating the spider entirely as a crab. With the sizzling sound of the grilled legs, the three hungry familiars immediately surrounded him, determined to find out what other dishes their servant was hiding. Defeated, Mukoda had to bring out 3 crab legs for them to share. Getting to eat such delicious food, Dora exclaimed that following them was definitely the right choice. Mukoda was completely dumbfounded. It turned out this sly dragon had been keeping an eye on him for a long time. But while on its way to catch up, Dora accidentally got lost, and the monsters in the forest, sensing a powerful creature approaching, went into a frenzy out of instinct. Good grief, so you were the root cause of this whole farce commotion. Hearing this, the main character felt sorry for the unlucky spider, but what could he do? He had to suppress his feelings and eat every last bit. It would be a waste otherwise. That night, Mukoda took a relaxing bath and went to sleep soundly with Sui, but it seems he forgot something. The goddesses waiting for their offerings were boiling with rage. Should we slap this dude awake to make him fulfill his sacred duty? The next morning, Mukoda brought the pile of shells to the guild master. He also gifted him some of the prepared crab legs, which the guild master loved. Seeing this, Mukoda decided to gift him something else and accidentally pulled out the earth dragon. That Fel had defeated long ago. Because he felt it was a huge pain, he had kept it in his item box, waiting for a way to deal with it. Since he was here, Mukoda told the guild master his troubles. The old man's eyes went wide in shock. You have to understand, the value of an earth dragon could buy an entire powerful nation. Luckily, he knew someone very knowledgeable about the dragon race, the guild master of the Dora-chan dungeon, City's Adventurers Guild, Elrond. The only thing is, that old man is a bit eccentric. Getting the news, Mukoda decisively set off for the city of Dora-chan. However, on the goddess's side, all 4 of them were livid. The deadline for offerings was approaching, and that dude still hadn't sent them anything. Just as they were furiously complaining about the main character, this scene was witnessed by 2 other gods. It was likely the god of war and the god of smithing, smiling deviously. No doubt about it, the number of people Mukoda had to make offerings to just increased by 2. After a long journey, the squad finally sets foot on the outskirts of the dungeon city of Dora-chan. The big boss wolf, Fel, is practically vibrating with excitement. He hopes there's something in the city worth conquering and is itching for a good old brawl with some new monsters just to get that adventure feeling back. Baby slime Sui pops out of his bag, doing a little flex to remind everyone that he's super strong too, and wants in on the fiery combat with the big boss. However, the squad's resident coward, our human servant, has zero intention of setting foot in any dungeon. The dude just wants to chill, cook, sleep, and do other similarly relaxing things. Baby dragon Dora-chan agrees, mentioning they should focus on other matters, like, for example, meeting the guild master named Elrond to ask about getting that earth dragon carved up. The moment he hears that, Fel finds his new true love and does a complete 180. Getting to feast on dragon meat prepared by the master chef Mukoda? What could possibly be better? And just like that, the legendary beast shoots off toward the city like a rocket, with Mukoda on his back, screaming helplessly at the terrifying speed. Approaching the main gate, the group sees a ridiculously long line of people waiting to be checked by the soldiers. The fact that they'll have to waste a good chunk of time just to get in does not sit well with Fel. He immediately comes up with a much smarter idea. Just hop the wall and skip the whole entry process. But Mukoda shuts that down instantly. He's dead certain they get hauled off to jail for life if they try that genius move. Out of options, our main character's crew has no choice but to begrudgingly wait in line. However, everyone in the queue is scared out of their wits when they see the super duper VIP pro beast standing behind them. The commotion forces the guards to step in. When they see the Fenrir next to Mukoda, they realize this guy is no ordinary person. The soldiers ask if he has come to the city at this time for some urgent business. Mukoda is completely flustered by the sudden question. He tries to explain that he's here to see the guild master and assures them he has no shady intentions, showing them his adventurer card. Before the guard can make a decision, a pretty boy golden-haired elf shows up and declares Mukoda is his esteemed guest. This pretty boy is none other than Elrond, the guild master of the dungeon city Dora-chan. He's heard a lot of interesting things about Mukoda from Rolf. Just as Elrond is about to greet Mukoda, his eyes lock onto the little pixie dragon perched on the man's shoulder. For some reason, this leaves him shocked, speechless. Before explaining, Elrond leads Mukoda and his 3 precious pets to his office. There, he treats Dora with special care above all others, offering it a seat on a strange branch made from wood infused with incredibly pure mana. However, Dora couldn't care less and just plops down next to Mukoda. This gives the guild master another massive shock. Turns out, he thought the noble pixie dragon species only liked to sit on such branches. He jots down this precious data, hoping that if he ever meets another pixie dragon, he can befriend it with this information. Whatever, the guy's a little nuts, but as long as he carves up that earth dragon for us, we're good. The guild master then offers Mukoda a cup of tea and, once again, gives special treatment to Dora-chan. He has prepared mana-infused flower nectar for it, just as the books described. Elrond looks like an addict waiting impatiently to see what Dora will do. Will it drink the nectar or demand regular tea like its master? Dora understands it's being used as a lab rat and feels incredibly annoyed. It immediately turns its head away to show its anger, which is just adorable. Must record this useful info immediately. What surprises the guild master the most is that the royal library has documents stating that the main diet of pixie dragons is mana and farce flower nectar. He wonders if those documents are completely wrong, since the little dragon in front of him couldn't be bothered. While thinking of how to get more accurate knowledge, his eyes suddenly light up as he remembers Mukoda is here to get a dragon carved up. He's eager to see the monster and leads the group to the warehouse. As they enter the room, a man with a head that could land a few planes appears and announces that Elrond has a meeting with the Merchants Guild in the afternoon. The guild master, of course, wants to ditch the meeting since he's busy with an important guest. But the man won't take no for an answer. Luckily, they still have some time. Everyone quickly gathers at the warehouse, and Mukoda casually pulls the earth dragon out of his item box, seeing the powerful monster. Elrond feels a chill run down his spine, but it only lasts for a second because now he's completely mesmerized by its magnificence. Hurry up and butcher it. Genie, what we need is dragon meat, and lots of it, for the next meal. After carefully jotting down the preliminary data of the earth dragon, Elrond once again asks Mukoda about Dora-chan's diet. Our main character explains that this pet eats a bit of everything while traveling with them, but the weirdo still asks Dora again to confirm if its species has a specific diet. Seeing the two whispering, Elrond is baffled because he had no idea Familiar could talk to its master via telepathy. He's desperate to hear the details, but the bald man beside him stops him before he can act like a complete idiot. After apologizing for the guild master's hyperactivity, the bald man assures them that his skills are top-notch, so they have nothing to worry about. But the sad news is, they'll need a few more days to get the processed meat. So, Mukoda and the group wonder what they should do while they wait. To kill time, Mukoda comes up with a simple yet effective idea. Cook some insanely delicious dishes for his pets. He quickly orders ingredients from the online supermarket and starts by heating up a strange pan, called a Jingisukan pan, also known as a Jingisukan pan. What the heck? What a weird name, but whatever. Mukoda arranges vegetables around the rim before placing the meat in the center. He then adds the sauce, and after just 10 minutes of cooking, the next level Jingisukan mutton is ready to serve. I wonder if you get the runs from this. Phil doesn't like veggies and initially only wants the meat, but after Mukoda begs, he reluctantly takes a bite and falls in love at first sight. Both Dora and Sui also slurp up their portions and demand another serving because it seems they can't get enough after an hour of non-stop combat with the stove. Mukoda finally gets a break. He pulls out a box of crackers he ordered specially for himself as dessert, and once again, all 3 pets run over to beg, sensing that their servant is hiding some tasty snacks. Guess I have to share a little. Mukoda looks happy, but deep down, he's still a bit sad about having to share this with his little troublemakers. He then has a very long night because the little rascals keep making a ruckus. They are all wide awake like kids on a caffeine high, and it makes him feel helpless. Despite his exhaustion, Mukoda still finds his way to the guild the next day. He wonders if Elrond is finished with the earth dragon so they can have a proper feast. Mukoda meets Yugur at the counter and eagerly brings it up. Before Yugur can answer, Elrond suddenly appears, reporting with great clarity. The dude looks extremely hyped from staying up all night to complete his dragon research. However, being so engrossed in the masterpiece, this genius hasn't even started butchering it yet. This guy probably just spent the whole night measuring the dragon's dimensions. Elrond confirms that's partly true and leads them inside to process the dragon together. One has to admit, the dragon's scales are incredibly tough, and normal methods won't work. However, the guild master brings out the best knife they own and confidently says, "We can cut through the dragon with this VIP Pro knife." Unfortunately, when he smashes the knife against the scale, it immediately breaks in two without doing anything. Elrond is utterly disappointed that his action yielded no good results. and now they're down one treasure. But that's not even the biggest problem. The real issue is that the guild has no other knife capable of piercing the armor of this dragon. What to do? What to do? When Fel learns of this, he can't help but be shocked. So their trip was wasted over something so silly? Fel faints and begs him to at least find something else to try. Mukoda asks Yuga what they can do to solve this, and Yuga reveals one way. He suggests the only solution is to go into the dungeon to get more mithril ore, to forge a top-tier knife immediately. Fel, Sui, and Dora are over the moon with that brilliant idea. At least this gives them some hope of eating dragon meat the next day. The three eagerly tell Mukoda they can go into the dungeon right now, but he knows this is extremely dangerous. He reassures them, saying Elrond needs to rest after pulling an all-nighter. It's better to wait until Elrond is feeling better before continuing the conversation. He leads them outside, knowing his troublemakers are feeling very salty. Mukoda tries to explain that if they go into the dungeon and cause a scene, they'll immediately become the center of attention, which would affect their trip and prevent them from enjoying their delicious feast in peace. The pets reconsider the situation and decide to stay with their master for an easier life. Mukoda offers to make a full, nutritious meal for them, but since he's exhausted, he decides to prepare a quick and simple meal with ingredients on hand. After prepping, he gets to work on kimchi fried orc rice. He quickly serves his little troublemakers, and they seem very excited about the dish. The tension is finally resolved, but what about the dragon butchering problem? Meanwhile, the four goddesses are fuming because Mukoda has ghosted them on his monthly offerings. Since he's a gold mine, they have to keep it a secret and can't make a big deal out of it. But their complaints about Mukoda don't go unheard, quickly attracting the attention of two other gods. They ask if the four of them are intercepting offerings from a mortal. The goddesses, hearing this, try to defend their honor, claiming they were just gifts of gratitude and refusing to admit fault. Mukoda, sensing major trouble, kneels before the gods and speaks to them. He apologizes for not sending offerings and asks the gods to calm down and resolve the situation peacefully. The two new gods finally notice Mukoda's existence. Vahan, the god of war, and Hephaestus, the god of smithing, strike up a conversation. Thinking of the god of smithing, Mukoda suddenly realizes he needs a better knife to cut the earth dragon meat. He tries to ask Hephaestus, but before he can finish, the old god reveals he knows what he needs. Hephaestus says he will bestow his blessing so the man can borrow his power to create the best knife. In return, he needs a few things. Knowing Mukoda can bring things from another world, they want to receive some high-quality liquor. He agrees to do it, and Hephaestus considers which pet his blessing would be compatible with. Looking around, Sui is the most suitable, so he quickly bestows his blessing on the slime. Vahan insists that he also wants to bless Mukoda, but the man quickly refuses, as he is not suited for this power. After some thought, Mukoda suggests blessing Fel and Dora, as they can help him clear dungeons. Vahan thinks that's fine and agrees. In return, Mukoda sends everything they wanted up to the heavens. The group sees they are no longer arguing, but the goddess of wind still warns him not to delay his offerings like he just did. Afterward, Mukoda checks Sui's stats and sees the little guy now has the epic smithing skill. However, without mithril, they might have to visit the dungeon. Fel reminds him that he killed a mithril lizard in the dungeon before. There might still be some ore from it in storage. Our main character suddenly remembers, and it turns out what Fel said is completely true. Giving the material to Sui, the slime immediately uses its skill to create a knife much better than the one that broke. But wait a second, why did Fel know he still had mithril ore but insisted on going into the dungeon? Turns out, this old guy was just bored after days of not fighting monsters. As if being that battle-hungry wasn't enough, the god Vahan even buffed him with a 50% stat increase and enhanced his fighting spirit. Like this, who's gonna handle these two menaces now that they're even more battle-hyped?